Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vassell and Sam Healy.
If you watch my reviews, you know that I'm not a huge fan of the fact that most Euro games have the same theme over and over and over again. Somehow we're either building a castle or a cathedral, or we are struggling to survive, or we are trading goods in the Mediterranean or whatever sea we're in.
Well, now, all that frustration has come to a head. And we're going to build nuclear bombs now, people.
All right. The first thing we should mention, though, is that this is a Euro game. You're actually not bombing, well...
Yes, you are.
You're not nuking each other.
Okay.
I guess that happens after this game. You play this and then pull out Axis and Allies or what? I don't know what you do then. Because by the end of this game, everyone has built nuclear bombs. Mm-hmm. But it's a worker placement game. Let's see how to play it. Each player has their own player board that they will put in front of them, and that player board is of their color. So you can see that there's different colors here. And so let's say I'm the purple player. I put my player board in front of me, and I start with one fighter and one bomber, and I'm also going to start with some workers. Now there's other workers that I can get. These workers are actually split up into scientists and engineers. You can see the different kinds there. And there's also some temporary workers that you can get as the game goes by that are in a gray color. Anybody can get those. And basically, you're going to go around the table, and on your turn, you can place a worker into this main board area, or you can pull all your workers off. You can also place workers in any buildings you have down here, but I'll mention that in a little bit. When you place a worker into these areas up here, there's different things that you can do. And you can see that the different places here. Let's say I put a worker here, I would add 2 to my fighters. If I put a worker here, I'd add 2 to my bombers. If I put a worker here, I get $5, but I have to pay 3 of this yellow cake dust uranium, whatever you want to call it. You have to pay 3 of that to the to get that money. It also has a little red dollar sign there, because that means that there's a bribe placed. That bribe is placed up here on this building, and many of the spots on the board will place bribes on that building. I could go here and take $5 for free, but everyone else gets 2. I can go here and get $3 for free, but there I can't put a regular worker. I must put either an engineer or a scientist. So that's one place I can send my workers, is to the factories. I could also send my worker down to the mines to get some of this yellow cake. Again, pay $5 for 4 yellow cubes. Don't pay anything, take 3 cubes, but everyone else gets 1. Or get 2 cubes, but there I have to use an engineer. If I want to get more workers, I can get 3 regular workers, an engineer, a scientist or engineer, but that one costs 3. I can increase, everyone has a plutonium and uranium track over here that you will put one of your markers on to show how much of it you have. And I can increase that at these spots here. See, for 2 yellow cake and a scientist, I can increase my plutonium. For 2 yellow cake, 3 gold and a scientist, I can increase my uranium. So there's different things going on that you can put your people. But the number one place that you're going to be very interested in putting your people, at least in the beginning of the game, is here in the construction zone. And there's room. Most of these places only have spots for 1 guy, but the construction zone has spots for a lot of guys. When you do that, you're going to be able to build some of these buildings. Now the cost of the building is on the top of it. So you can see the university here costs 5, while this mine costs 7. And as the game progresses, many of these buildings are going to come out. When you buy one of these buildings, that building is placed in your board. And so as the game progresses, you're going to have different kinds of buildings that are on your board and different things that you can do with those. So for example, here on my board, I have a university and another university. I have a factory and my own, another factory, and a mine. So when I place a worker out on the board, I'm also allowed to place as many workers as I want in my own buildings. So this question mark here, 2 question marks means I put 2 people there, and that will give me either 2 engineers or a scientist. I can put 1 engineer here and get 3 yellow cubes. I can put 2 of anything here and get a bomber and $2. I can put 5 guys, 2 scientists, and 2 yellow cubes, and my uranium track goes up by 2. And so there's lots of different things going on. Now, you can't usually use someone else's building, but there's a spy track over here. And whenever I send someone here and pay $3, I move my guy up the spy track, and whatever number I'm on the spy track, that's how many guys I can send out and put them in other people's buildings. So all this is going on. You're trying to send out workers and get this stuff to increase your uranium and plutonium, and you do all that so that you can design bombs. Eventually, someone's going to put a scientist and worker here, and then players basically draft some bombs that are sitting near the board. There's different kinds of bombs that have costs to build. They're basically like a building. Here, this one needs 2 scientists, 2 engineers, and 6 of your plutonium. And then you have a bomb that will either give you 11 points or 20 points. It's normally 11 points, but if you test the bomb, basically throw it away, you can take this to show that you've tested it, which is worth only 8 points instead of 11. But for the rest of the game, all the plutonium bombs then will be worth the red value. And bombs can also be loaded on airplanes where you pay some extra money, and then that will give you some extra points because you basically loaded it on an airplane. And so there's different bombs that give different amounts of points, and whoever is the first person to get a certain amount of points, let's say 50 points in a 4-player game, is the winner of the game. Those bombers and fighters that you're collecting allow you to make strikes on your opponents. You can do that by putting someone here in the airstrikes, and you use your fighters to shoot down your opponent's fighters and bombers, and then your bombers can go in and actually damage their building to the point where they have to put damage tokens on their buildings. And then they will have to repair those, or they will not be able to use those buildings any longer. Also, if you destroy their bombers, they can't load their nuclear bombs onto bombers to test them. So that's essentially the game in a nutshell. There's more going on than just that, but that gives you kind of an overview of how to build the bomb. All right, the Manhattan Project is an interesting game because the ways to win the game, there's essentially only really one way to win, and that's to build bombs. There's 2 types of bombs, I suppose, the plutonium and hydrogen bombs, but I mean, at the very beginning of the game,
Uranium.
Oh, uranium. So you have a few things to do, and then it keeps getting more and more and more and more and more things to do. But then near the end of the game, you're only doing a few things on the board. So it kind of goes out and then back in.
Yep.
But I was fascinated by this game. Not just because of the theme. I don't have any kind of desire to blow, huge amounts of people up with nuclear bombs. But I love I like worker placement, and I especially like worker placement games that have different kind of workers, which this one had. The scientists and the engineers. And the fact that you could even hire,
generic
consultants or whatever they were called, the generic workers. And so you could have more workers than everybody else, and it wasn't a hard thing to do like it is in some games.
Right.
There's so many resources. There's money and yellow cake and all that. But there's a couple things I really liked about the game. One is I like games that give me choices, which is fun, but I'm not so key on games that give you a choice like, would you prefer to lose $4 or $8 this turn? That's not fun. In this game, you had always had a good choice. Even if the whole board was filled and you're being blocked everywhere, there was still something you could do. You're like, well, I'll just take some money. Oh, let's get this. There was always something good, and if you built the buildings on your board, you had a better chance to get those.
Don't get them wrong, though. There are some times where you must or you need to do a certain thing and somebody else has done it.
Oh, well, that you're like, but I'm just saying that you never sit there and go, I can't do anything.
Right.
I always felt like my best choice was, and the only time I think what you were saying, that comes into effect mostly near the end of the game, because you need to get those plutonium and whatever you're producing, uranium plants, you need to get those things cracking.
Right.
And those are all fought over near the end.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that was pretty cool is kind of the nondescript depictions of the workers. They weren't pictured as actual people. It's just a faceless little
My daughter said it was
man dude.
Minecraft with round heads.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. So I thought that was pretty cool to where it was nondescript. It's kind of a difference from what other games have been doing in the past where, there's a lot of description and detail put into the...
Well, nuclear bombs are horrific as it is.
Yeah,
they really are. And I mean, this kind of depersonalizes it somewhat.
Deadens that a little bit.
Although you can get a mini expansion, it came for the Kickstarter, with nations. I don't know how available that is, but that kind of, now you could be America versus U.S. versus the Russia versus China, and gives them a special building.
Yeah, it just adds a tad bit of flavor. It gives you a special ability. It doesn't really change the gameplay very much at all, but. This, I thought the irony of it was cool. The fact that it's a Euro game and you're building nuclear bombs, I just thought that was cool. And you can go on airstrikes and bomb factories and stuff like that. I thought it was cool.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting about this game is that most worker placements have some kind of confrontation where basically I put the guy there, you can't, haha. I mean, that's how a lot of worker placement goes. But this one, it can be worse than that because you can say, seriously, that's it. I am now spying in your buildings. That's one direct way. But another way is I'm bombing you. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't have to be used, and I honestly could see that there would be groups in the world that would never use it. They would Cold War it to death. I'll get you. Oh, not if I'm ready. I'll get you. And everyone Cold Wars and nothing ever happens. But I can see other groups where they just devastate each other and destroy things. I think you should fall somewhere in the middle where you attack somebody, but only if they're about to win the game or something to that effect. That's what I think, but maybe I'm wrong.
If everybody's airstriking each other, it's going to prolong the game because it's going to slow everybody's production down, which is going to just put the end game that much further off into the horizon. But if you wait for those surgical strikes, when somebody's about to make a big move or something to that effect, slowing down their production for a turn or two, so that you can kind of catch up to them. That's what you want to use the airstrikes and the bombing runs for.
So, anyway, I'm going to give this one to Big Boy and Thin Man, Fat Boy and Thin Man up. I liked it a lot. There's a lot of interesting options to take in it. The theme plays very well. And I was pretty much interested the whole time since turns went by so fast. Bum, 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 bum. A lot going on. So
very little.
I enjoyed it. And you?
Very little downtime. I'm going to give it one fighter and one bomber up. Absolutely cool. I really enjoyed this game. Can't wait to see it played again. Would very much like to be in on the next play of it. So I think that's as far as I'm concerned, that's a pretty glowing report.
Manhattan Project.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.